Then the World Cup arrived, bringing with it an opportunity for the world's thickest millionaires to kick a sphere around a lawn. In case you missed the action, it basically looked and sounded like this. In July, the world oohed and ahed to the release of Inception, a dream-based blockbuster with ideas above, below and beside its station, whatever that means. Drenched with impressive, expensive set pieces and a surreal visual style, Inception's basic plot was complex enough to require its own diagram. It's so complicated, the screenplay was probably printed on a dodecahedron. It followed a man called Cobb, played by Leonard D. Apricot here, as he attempted to plant an idea inside the dreaming mind of another bloke, played by Killian Blue Eyes, at the behest of a third bloke, played by Ken Wannabe. The story involved Cobb and his team carrying out an unreal Russian doll-style heist as they invaded a dream, then induced another dream, and then entered that dream within a dream to kick off another dream, which was a dream within a dream within a dream. It was essentially the motion picture equivalent of a smart-ass little prick dancing around going, "Oh, look, I'm over here. No, I'm not. Hoo-hoo, I'm over here," for 300 hours. It was also a bit like playing 3 different video game levels at once, including inevitably a boring snow stage, which you immediately want to end the moment it starts. Still, despite being really quite annoying for about 40% of its running time, Inception did include some really interesting ideas, such as dreams are weird, and it had some great action sequences, including this mind-bending, gravity-defying punch-up, which doubled as a pretty accurate simulation of how it feels to get apocalyptically drunk on a cruise liner. There was also a spooky and spectacular sequence in which Juno Girl makes the French capital fold up like so much concrete origami using the power of her dreaming mind. Well, I haven't seen Paris bend over like that since I downloaded that video. I'm so funny. Summer means festivals, and this year there were loads. Glastonbury, the Isle of Wight, Tea in the Park, the Edinburgh Fringe, the Hay-on-Wye Pretension Fete, and of course the big current affairs street party in Rothbury. You remember that? Started with a guy called Raoul Moat. Yes, when former doorman Raoul Moat, recently released from prison, shot his ex-girlfriend, killed her new boyfriend and then shot a policeman, he immediately became Britain's most wanted man. The only people who wanted him more than the police were the nation's journalists. Before long, police were on Moat's tail and had sealed off the village of Rothbury. Sky News upped sticks and left London behind for a summer holiday on its outskirts. Here, Kay Burley and co hung around the picturesque landscape, watching impressive graphics whoosh from one tranquil, uninteresting scene to another tranquil, uninteresting scene, viewed from a slightly different angle.
We just see a couple of anglers who don't look as though they've caught much, do they?
With not even any hot fish action to speak of, they had to content themselves by probing Moat's mental state, reading aloud from his letters like something from a particularly sociopathic edition of Points of View.
I'm a killer and a maniac, but I ain't no coward.
I'll say you ain't no coward. This whole letter is just devoid of wit. Also of interest was the subject of Moat's physique, which the news speculated could have been the result of steroid abuse, which we were told could turn him into a kind of angry Superman.
If you are a hairy male, you would become more hairier. If you are an impatient male, you would probably become more impatient. If you're an angry male, then you may be a little bit more angrier.
Yeah, and if you're a wistful man, you'll get a bit more wistfulier. And if you're good at darts, you'll get a bit more dartsier.
It just amplifies whatever makes you a man.
Yeah, so it's basically a manplifier. But despite the media's best efforts, the public didn't seem quite scared enough of this manplified bogeyman. Which was a terrible shame because the news seemed to be banking on his box office appeal. Sky News were even using him to promote their new HD service.
The net is closing on Britain's most wanted man. Watch continuous coverage on Sky News.
Trouble is, seeing that, you could be forgiven for thinking that if you tuned in, you'd see car chases, cops running around, that sort of thing. Whereas instead, what you actually got was more like a curious cross between an episode of Wish You Were Here and Crime Watch, as Jeremy Thompson took us on a guided tour showcasing Rothbury's genteel charm while simultaneously asking its residents if this was all a bit scary.
A bit scary, all this?
Yeah. Just a little bit.
A little bit? Oh, these two aren't scared at all unless they're grinning with terror. Quick, find someone else.
Well, from the bakers to the local butchers, and Morris Adamson open for business today. Everything looks back to normal, but I bet just below the surface things aren't, are they?
Yeah, I mean, things are still a little bit tense, you know.
A little bit? Well, I suppose he wouldn't be that worried. He's got a rack of knives on the wall. Anyway, so far we've had the butcher, the baker, so here's the candlestick farmer.
Mike, it must be a bit unnerving to have a gunman at loose around here in this remote area.
It is a little bit.
A little bit? So basically so far it's been a little bit scary, a little bit tense and a little bit unnerving. And now here's a little bit of advice for Raoul Moat.
How easy is it for a man to hide out here?
He would hide as easy as anything. He could last for days out here. Nobody would ever know where he was.
Yes, the focus was now moving to Moat's ability to survive in the wild like the UK's most dangerous squirrel. And you could be forgiven for thinking the news was deliberately broadcasting a guide to evading police in the wild specifically for Moat to use. Any feral maniacs watching would learn loads. You'd learn what to eat.
Eating raw food that's cold will affect his digestion.
Hot food.
His critical need is not food, it is water.
Ah, water. On the informative GMTV, you could learn where to hide.
Now, as regard to hiding from the police, there can be no better place than that. And there's lots of that around here.
So hide in that, whatever that is. Trees.
As well as forests and lots of derelict buildings, we have around here lots of caves.
Caves.
Deep cave system is actually very warm as well.
Deep caves.
If it gets cold and it gets wet, it will be warmer in a deeper cave.
Wet, warm, deep caves. Oh, I never knew survival could be so sexy. But not as sexy as this hot Arsenal action. Yes, it's Call of Duty, Hack Ops, as an anchor provides on-the-run viewers with a handy guide to what weapons the cops tote, presented by a journo palpably trying to stifle his arousal.
You can see the sights on there, the ammunition clips that go in to that part of it.
Go on, squirt off a few rounds, you know you want to. Fortunately, the desk was there to mask his erection. Drop it! Meanwhile, Britain's fantastic newspapers were subjecting Raoul Moat's childhood snaps to sneering, knuckle-headed scrutiny, so a strikingly benign photo of young Moat was labelled "Cute baby, but 2-month-old Moat clenches his fists." Surprised they didn't show a photo of him breastfeeding and call him a tit-biting madman. They also ran a front-page story claiming his mother had said he'd be better off dead. And this kind of coverage hadn't gone unnoticed by a certain Raoul Moat. He left a dictaphone message for police claiming to be upset by the coverage and threatening to kill a member of the public in exchange for each inaccurate report. A bit like an armed extremist wing of the Press Complaints Commission. As a result, the police requested a media blackout on stories relating to Moat's private life, which left the news with even less inane speculation to string out, because there was still no sign of the man himself. Jeremy Thompson was reduced to hanging around in the undergrowth with a tracker, foraging for bullshit. He didn't find Moat, but he did find some traces of Moat, or possibly litter. It was hard to say.
From here I can already see a recently discarded Argos carrier bag.
God, I bet that Argos bag would look amazing on Sky News HD. Thankfully for everyone's sanity, things came to a head on a balmy Friday evening as Moat was spotted on the outskirts of Rothbury. Stiff, rule-following police immediately warned residents to stay in their homes, but the reporters ignored that in favour of creating an impromptu media carnival in the middle of the high street. The coverage soon showed people pouring out to see what was going on and occasionally wave at their relatives back home. Speaking of relatives, the BBC's John Sobel encouraged a woman visibly upset that her mum was in the sealed-off area to ring her live on air, even telling her how to operate the phone to do it.
Can you put your mum on the speakerphone?
That's a bit impersonal.
Good job she didn't have an iPhone. He'd ask for a go on Angry Birds next.
Can I have a quick word with her?
Can the guy speak to you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Moat, we learned, was lying down with a gun pointed at his head, but the news couldn't quite see that from where they were standing. Reporters tweeted that they were trying to get close but were prevented from doing so. Instead, they had to make do with broadcasting photos of some pissed-off-looking marksmen. So finally, they got what they'd come for. Although rather than getting images, they captured audio of Moat's shotgun going off, which they inevitably played again and again and again, even cranking the volume because it was important we should hear it.
Listen to it again, we're going to really push these levels for you.
No, I think they all pushed it on all sorts of levels. Also in July, the big society got a hand in the form of Channel 4's fairy job mother, aka Hayley Taylor, a sort of super nanny state. She was an off-the-peg, troubleshooting telebody who preempted the government's bullying of the bone idol by several months. The format was simple: find some feckless, jobless people who seemed unemployable, and then get the fairy job mother to drag them out of the demotivating benefit trap and onto the meaningless wage-slave treadmill. The targets of the programme's advice seemed more depressed than anything, but that was overshadowed by a blizzard of patronising empowerment exercises.
Right, I want to talk you through this. We're on this journey, yeah? Hopefully leading off far into the distance and over there's a job, okay? But at the moment, we're here.
Apparently the best way to make someone grow up and take responsibility for themselves is to treat them like they're 4.
Good morning, my name's Dean Peterson, mate, for the 10 o'clock interview.
Well done!
Cinema in 2010 was dominated by the need to wear these things, 3D glasses. The craze really came into its own, of course, with the ultra-successful Avatar, a visually spectacular epic about a tribe of sanctimonious blue wankers selfishly attempting to halt mankind's progress for the sake of a poxy tree. Don't know if you saw it, but it was basically the equivalent of having a Smurf on a stick shoved in your face for 3 hours. Not that 3D was confined to cinemas. Sky launched a 3D TV service so viewers could experience the crushing mundanity of their programmes in 3 dimensions, with Sky News helpfully showing how it worked with graphics that weren't at all misleading. Technology continued its dominance over mankind throughout 2010, but it wasn't all plain sailing. First, in a thrilling online press conference, Steve Jobs unveiled the iPad, which aimed to revolutionise the way mankind stroked overpriced rectangles forever. And as if that wasn't enough, Apple also unleashed the iPhone 4, a device so advanced the human hand was almost too old-fashioned to use it. Video games continued their ongoing renaissance with superb titles such as the sprawling Western epic Red Dead Redemption, happy-go-lucky platform action in the dreamlike Super Mario Galaxy 2, unhappy-go-lucky indie platform action in the nightmarish Limbo, handheld physics fun with the seemingly ubiquitous Angry Birds, and ghoulish interactive movie shenanigans in the cinematic Heavy Rain, which included an astonishing sequence in which you had to make your character cut one of his own fingers off via a method of your choosing. I've gone for pliers. Of course, I'm so desensitised to violence I can just play this while having a snack.
You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left.
But games weren't all nasty. Some were so charming they could only be advertised by lovable boy band Jalus. What's really interesting about this advert is that it graphically simulates how it might look if JLS held a wanking contest. One day in August, Britain woke up to footage of a woman putting a cat in a bin. These tragic images dismayed everyone.
And it's really sad because it's a rescue cat, so it's had its fair share of trauma, and now this happens.
The footage had been posted on the internet. Before long, it went global.
A woman in England has caused quite a controversy after dumping a cat into the trash.
Round and round the world it went, being shown again and again and again in different languages.
抓起小猫，将它扔进了旁边的一个垃圾桶里，还用力地关上桶盖。
But with a similar reaction everywhere.
Then she opens up that garbage bin right there.
Oh no,
and dumps the cat right in there.
No! The first thing everyone wanted to know was who was this woman?
The woman we showed you last night dropping a cat into a wheelie bin has been identified, but her motive hasn't.
Yes, as Alistair Stewart had somberly indicated, Cat Bin Lady's motives were a mystery to everyone. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you put a cat in a bin? Why is she doing this? I mean, why? Why is she doing this? Why? Why is she doing it? Why put a cat in a bin? I mean, why? Why do it? Why? Seriously, why? Why? I mean, why? Eventually the news had her cornered and all they wanted to know was why. Why would you do it, Mary?
People might just understand, Mary, if you just tell us.
Yes, we might understand. Just tell us.
Just tell us. We know you.
Why did you do this, though?
Yeah, why did you do it, though?
Can you just tell us why you did what you did?
Yes, tell us why you did what you did.
Mary, if you just speak to us for a few seconds, we can go away.
You know, actually, I can't help thinking there isn't really going to be an explanation that's going to satisfy everyone. And sure enough, she eventually issued a statement saying she could not explain her actions. And so our world was left revolving in the cold, dark universe, knowing only two things. One, that there are some cruelties that can never be adequately explained. And two, that we are all alone. Not as alone as a cat in a bin, but alone.
When the X Factor came on, all glitzy like, they'd done this really clever thing, right? Because usually, when the audition night are singing, even the good ones aren't as good as like proper stars, like, you know, Leona Lewis or JLS or something. But this year, they used a computer to make them sound like sort of electric space people, like if RoboCop was singing at a wedding.
Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit.
But what was really good was the shit ones who got laughed at didn't have the false voice thing put on. So when you were laughing at them, you knew you were really laughing at like the very core of their being, you know, cackling at their souls. Loads of people moaned about it, but what they didn't get was that the X Factor had to make the good ones sound good with a computer, because otherwise they might have sounded shit. and that wouldn't have made sense because the judges put them through. I mean, think about it. I mean, how are you meant to know they're a good singer if they keep hitting wrong notes?